Hello everybody and welcome back to Red Eagle Politics. Make sure you like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. So, the state of Wisconsin has a statewide election that is very consequential coming up that will determine the outcome of the Supreme Court, whether it's going to remain a conservative court or become a liberal state court. And this is very important because the state court has been that bulwark against many parts of the Evers agenda, and it is at risk of flipping. A lot of people wrote this off as an instant flip due to the primary results where Democrats or liberal-leaning justices, because they technically are nonpartisan, the liberal candidates combined for 54% of the vote. The conservative candidates combined for 46%, so they lost by 8, although that is likely going to not be the same electorate as the electorate that will be taking place in the April 4th election, which is coming up in just about 3 weeks from now. And it's important we talk about this because it seems as if the tides may be changing. It does seem as if the funding gap is closing. And what could this mean down the stretch? Could the court stay a conservative court? It very well possibly could. This is likely going to go down the wire either way. So we are going to dive into it and talk about some of the more recent developments on this race that will be taking place in about 3 weeks from now. But first, I have to tell you guys about our very good friends over at Noble Gold. We'll talk about silver today, and silver's appeal lies in its rarity and aesthetic worth. But its importance in today's economy and technology may surprise you. It's used in a wide variety of technological devices and renewable energy sources like solar panels. That's why securing your financial future with the Silver IRA from Noble Gold Investments is such a brilliant idea. And this month, every qualifying Silver IRA of $20,000 or higher comes with a magnificent Silver Eagle bullion coin. You could visit noblegoldinvestments.com to learn more. The link in the pinned comment down below at redeaglegold.com. So, this was the primary. It took place back in February, mid to late February, probably around 2 to 3 weeks ago. So we're kind of at the halfway point of the general election cycle here for this state Supreme Court election. And you have a divided field. That's the first thing you have to note. There's a divided field between Daniel Kelly, who was a former conservative justice on the court that lost in 2020. We'll talk about why in a second. And Jennifer Dorow, who was the judge on the Darrell Brooks trial, the Waukesha massacre trial in Waukesha. That's why she did so well in Waukesha County, did very well in the Milwaukee area. Outstate, you saw Daniel Kelly do very well. He started to, pick up some of those counties outstate, one could say, where there was just such a plurality that Janet Prostatsowitz, or however you pronounce her name, some people will say potatoes, but Kelly did well enough to get a plurality over the liberal candidate as well as over Jennifer Dorow, and that is true. And there's a lot at stake here. And turnout was a problem, but you look at the fact that you have this divided field. The left consistently rallies behind one candidate. You had Everett Mitchell in the race. He really wasn't funded. He was this far left candidate. He only got 7.5% of the vote. I think he got, 14% in Milwaukee and Madison. That's about it. And elsewhere in the state, he got next to nothing. But conservatives have this divide, and it is hurting them. And there's really not that much of a difference between somebody like Daniel Kelly and somebody like Jennifer Dorow. Dorow was supported more by the WOW counties, one could say, more by the establishment due to locational proximity. But her and Daniel Kelly are not super different on the issues. And this is a problem. You have people getting a little bit tribal over who they're supporting due to minute differences or whatever. But they're not that different from each other. You got to come together. You got to win in the general because there's so much at stake here. It's crazy. You talk about not just like the abortion issue, which is what the left and the Prostatsowitz supporters will talk about. You have redistricting. Democrats are going to use the court to draw whatever maps they possibly can to get rid of a Republican congressional seat, to get rid of Republican state Senate seats, state House seats, whatever, because they have awful geography in the state of Wisconsin, so they're going to gerrymander the maps in their favor. Election laws, you talk about what's going to be happening there. They're going to probably do anything they can do to reinstate some form of universal vote by mail, etc. in the state of Wisconsin. They could get rid of some of the election laws, or they could not shoot down election laws that the state Supreme Court has shot down. Keep in mind, this court was very pivotal during COVID because they kept the state open longer than Evers really wanted the state to be open for. And the education issue, the parents' rights issue, every single issue is at stake here in the state of Wisconsin. If you have a Democrat or a liberal-controlled court, they're going to do everything possible to make the state kind of how Michigan is and make sure that they can make the state a one-party state in the future, or at least try to stop the red trends that are persisting in the state, because the state does seem like it's moving in the Republican direction, but they're going to do everything they can do to stop that. They're going to try to keep the state as liberal as they possibly can. So the good news is it does seem as if the climate is shifting. Daniel Kelly, a lot of people said, was an awful candidate. And the reason why they said that was because he lost. He's been a part of the political establishment for a while. I don't mean that in necessarily a pejorative way, but he's been a part of the Supreme Court. He was a solid judge when he was on the Supreme Court, a solid justice there in Wisconsin. But he's already an established figure. One could say established over the term establishment, which, as I've said, is typically a pejorative term, especially in these circles. But what we do know is that he got decked in 2020, but keep in mind he got a majority of the vote in the first initial primary there, a primary where Democrats only got 37% last time around. This time around they have 54 or whatever, but in the general election he lost by a combined 10.5 percentage points to Jill Karofsky. The county map was absolutely awful for him in the Driftless area, even in some of these deep red counties now that Trump flipped from 2012 to 2016. Daniel Kelly ended up losing them. And the reason why is because of the fact that the election for this was on the same day as the Democrat primary for president was. Bernie Sanders got 300,000 votes. He had no shot in this race. He dropped out the night of, even though they haven't even, finished counting the ballots or whatever. So Bernie Sanders stayed in the race for longer just so Jill Karofsky would end up winning this race by the margin she did. It's possible that she could have won it either way, but you look at the numbers there, about, what is that, 140 or 160,000 votes or so? I mean, Bernie Sanders on his own, and obviously there were other candidates in the race. Some of them already dropped out. You had people like, I think Tulsi Gabbard was still in the race, whatever. But those votes definitely helped down ballot. Some of these people that dropped out, whatever, it doesn't exactly matter. You have candidates like Elizabeth Warren, Bloomberg. Early voting definitely carried them over the finish line. And there was approximately 340,000 extra voters in this race that did not exactly vote for Joe Biden. Donald Trump, I think, got more votes than Biden, or around that range. He was in an uncontested primary, but that definitely played a role at limiting the numbers that Daniel Kelly was possible to get. So I really wouldn't look too much into this election, because you compare that to now, and it's a very different ball game right now. The problem is funding, really, and the problem is party unity, or technically ideological unity, because Daniel Kelly is a conservative, technically more so than a Republican, even though the Republican Party is endorsing him, just like the Democrats are endorsing Prostacewicz. He has the Ron Johnson endorsement. He has the Jennifer Doro endorsement. She's being a team player. That's good. You love to see it. And it all comes down to turnout. That's what it comes down to. Money matters in a race like this. You talk about that. They're finally adding more money to the conservative side. Prostacewicz early on, because of that funding advantage, she's been spending like crazy because you had a divided field on the right, but Prostacewicz has got that advantage, but they're closing the gap, which is good. You have $3.2 million from Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce, $1.7 million from Fair Courts America, and a lot of these donors are coming together, and you're looking at Kelly's stock, and it's increasing. And this is true. They conducted a poll, an internal unreleased poll, before they booked a $3.2 million ad buy over the next few weeks based on its findings alone. And if the poll showed that a Kelly could not win, they probably would not have booked the ads. But either way, we know how polls can be off if turnout is off. You have to turn out the voters. Turnout was awful in a lot of these places in southwestern Wisconsin in the primary. You're going to have to get those two-time Trump voters who may have skipped a midterm or two out to vote for Daniel Kelly. Wow County turnout, you should get them regardless. Wow County turnout in 2020 in this election was just fine. Kelly got Trump margins in Waukesha County there. He's probably going to get similar margins this time around, and that will be good enough to win so long as rural turnout is decent enough. And they're going to have to do that. They're going to have to get as many voters out to vote possible. They can't just rely on the suburbs to win. They're going to have to do better outstate. They're going to have to get those voters out and voting. And if they are able to do that, then they will indeed be able to win this race. So it really comes down to that. Now, you look at what happened in Oklahoma recently with the referendum there. You look at what happened in some of these special elections, not all of them, but some of them in Pennsylvania, where Republicans finally have been starting to use early voting and absentees to their advantage in states where that's par for the course, and they're doing better as a result. So they're going to have to utilize the election system the same way the left does so they can maximize turnout. If Democrats are going to be getting out their voters in Milwaukee en masse, in Madison, well, you better be going to the driftless area. You better be having these field representatives doing everything that they possibly could do to find these voters and make sure you can get as many ballots in the ballot boxes as soon as possible, so then you know what voters to find to turn out on election day, and you go from there. And that's how you're going to win this election. That's how you're going to save the state of Wisconsin, because Wisconsin's a state on the verge, and this is a very, very underrated election. It really is. This is an election that could determine the outcome of the state, one could even say, in 2024. You have Kentucky, you have Louisiana, you have Mississippi, those three governorships up for grabs. You have the Virginia State Senate and House up for grabs as well this year. However, at the same time, most people and a lot of pundits are saying that this, of all of the elections that are taking place in 2023, will end up being the most consequential. And conservatives, or Daniel Kelly, the conservative candidate, he is surging. Will it be enough? It does come down to turnout. There is this disconnect with turnout. There is an issue. It needs to be rectified regardless of what happens. But either way, we'll see if the momentum is enough to carry Daniel Kelly down the stretch. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. Like this video down below, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. Follow me on social media. The links are all in the description down below. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Red Eagle, out.